The cold metal of the stretcher bit into my forearms as they wheeled me through the double doors of Pinebrook Mental Health Facility. I screamed Mark's name until my throat felt raw, but he just stood there in his tailored suit, his favorite gray one, the one he wore to client meetings, with his arms crossed like he was watching someone return a defective appliance. Not his wife being hauled into a psych ward. It's for your own good, Lily, he called out. His voice smooth as the scotch he drinks every night after work. The doctor says you're having a breakdown. A breakdown. I'd been fine that morning. We'd had coffee together, talked about the weekend trip to his parents' cabin we'd planned for months. It wasn't until I found that receipt in his coat pocket. $4.50 at a boutique downtown. The same one my sister had rambled about last week, the one that sold those designer scarves no man would buy for himself. That things went south. I'd held it up, asked him who it was for, and suddenly his face had gone tight, his jaw clenched like he was trying to hold back a storm. Next thing I knew, there were two guys in white coats at the door, saying Mark had called them, that I'd threatened self-harm and rambled incoherently. Lies, all lies, let me go, I yelled, kicking at the stretcher. One of the orderlies, a broad-shouldered guy with a tattoo of an eagle on his wrist, gave me a sharp look. Settle down, Resisting will only make this harder. Mark followed us down the hallway, his dress shoes clicking against the linoleum. I caught a glimpse of his reflection in a window, his hair perfectly gelled, his tie straight, not a single hair out of place, like this was just another errand. I'll bring you your favorite books tomorrow, he said, leaning over the stretcher. His breath smelled like mint gum, the kind he chews when he's lying. Just do what the doctors say, and we'll get you home soon. You're lying, I whispered. His smile faded, just for a second. So fast I almost thought I imagined it. Then he straightened up, turned to the orderly, and said, she's been really volatile. Make sure the nurses keep an eye on her. They took me to a small room with beige walls and a single window covered by a metal grill. No decorations, no pictures, just a bed with a thin mattress and a plastic chair. One of the nurses, a woman with a severe bun and a name tag that read Susan, handed me a hospital gown that smelled like bleach. Change into this, she said, her voice flat. We'll take your vitals in 5 minutes. I stood there, clutching my own clothes like they were a lifeline. Why is he doing this? I asked. Even though I knew she wouldn't answer, she just sighed and crossed her arms. Honey, half the people here think their spouses are out to get them. Just do what I say. After she left, I changed slowly, staring at myself in the mirror above the sink. My eyes were red from crying, my hair a mess. I looked like someone who'd lost her mind. Maybe that's what Mark wanted, for everyone to see me like this, so no one would believe me when I told them the truth. The receipt, the late nights at the office he couldn't explain, the way he'd flinch when his phone rang, like he was scared I'd see who was calling. When Susan came back, she took my blood pressure and asked me a million questions. How I'd been sleeping, if I'd had any suicidal thoughts, if I thought my husband was a threat. I lied to all of them, said I'd been having trouble sleeping, that I'd been stressed at work. If I told her the truth, she'd just write it off as paranoia. That's how this place worked. I realized they didn't care about the truth, they cared about checking boxes. Later, she led me to a common room where a handful of other people sat around a table playing cards or staring at the TV. A woman with short gray hair waved at me from a chair by the window. New here? She asked. I nodded, sitting down next to her. I'm Martha, been here 3 weeks. Husband said I was unstable, because I caught him cheating with his secretary. My stomach dropped. I stared at her. Really? She laughed, a dry, bitter sound. Honey, this place is full of women whose husbands wanted to shut them up. Mark, is it? Your husband's name? I nodded again, and she rolled her eyes. Figures, they all have the same name, practically. Mark, Dave, John. Guys who think a psych ward is easier than a divorce. I looked over at the door, half expecting Mark to walk in. He said he'd bring me books tomorrow, I said, my voice shaking. Martha snorted. He'll bring you books, he'll bring you flowers, he'll tell you he loves you. And then he'll go home and fuck his mistress while you're stuck here, taking pills that make you feel like a zombie. As the day wore on, I thought about what Martha had said. She was right. This wasn't about me being sick. This was about Mark covering his tracks. I needed to get out of here. I needed to prove he was lying. But how? I was locked in a building with no phone, no internet, no way to contact anyone. No one would believe me. No one except maybe, I stopped, thinking, my sister, Emma. She'd always hated Mark. She'd told me from the start he was too good to be true. If I could get a message to her, maybe she could help me. That night, lying in my bed, I listened to the sounds of the ward, the soft snores from the bed next to me, the nurses talking in the hallway, the distant wail of someone crying. I thought about Mark, lying in our bed at home, probably smiling as he deleted texts from his mistress. I thought about the receipt, crumpled up in the pocket of my jeans that Susan had taken away, gone, just like that. But then I remembered Martha's words, this place was full of women like me, women who hadn't given up. I closed my eyes, gripping the edge of the mattress. I wasn't going to let Mark win. I was going to get out of here. And when I did, I was going to make him pay. Morning came with the sound of a bell and Susan slamming open the door to the dorm. Rise and shine, she called out. Her voice loud enough to jolt everyone awake. Breakfast in 10 minutes. Don't be late. I sat up slowly, my head throbbing from the sleeping pill they'd given me the night before. Martha was already up, brushing her hair in front of the small mirror by the door. You look like death, she said, tossing me a hair tie. Here. At least try to look presentable. Mark's probably on his way with those favorite books of yours. I tied my hair back in a messy ponytail and followed her to the cafeteria. The air smelled like burnt toast and coffee that tasted like tar. We sat at a table in the corner, picking at our oatmeal, while the other patients milled around. A guy in a bathrobe muttered to himself about government spies at the next table, and a young girl cried quietly into her cereal. So how do we get out of here? I asked, leaning in so no one else could hear. Martha raised an eyebrow, slowly, real slowly. You don't fight the system here. You play along, tell the doctors what they want to hear. I'm stressed, I'm sorry I overreacted. My husband is so supportive. Then, when they think you're stable, they'll let you go. If you fight, they'll keep you here for months. Trust me, I've seen it. Before I could say anything else, Susan walked over, her clipboard in hand. Lily, your husband's here to see you. Visiting hours are from 9 to noon. Don't cause any trouble. My hands started shaking as I followed her to the visiting room. It was a small space with plastic chairs and a few potted plants that looked like they'd died months ago. Mark was sitting at a table in the corner, a book in his hand. The Great Gatsby, my favorite. He stood up when he saw me, opening his arms like he was going to hug me. But I stepped back. His smile faltered. You look better, he said, sitting back down. He pushed the book across the table. Brought this for you. Thought it might help pass the time. I picked it up, flipping through the pages. No note, no nothing. Just a book, like he was trying to buy my silence with a novel. Why did you do this? I asked, my voice low. Why did you send me here? His face hardened. Lily, we talked about this. The doctor said you had a breakdown. You were yelling, throwing things. I was asking about the receipt. I snapped. The $450 at that boutique. Who was it for? Mark. Who is she? He glanced at the door, like he was scared someone would hear. You're delusional, he said, his voice sharp. That receipt was for your birthday present. I was going to surprise you, but then you went off the deep end. And now, my birthday is in 3 months, I said. He froze. For a second, I saw panic in his eyes. Then he leaned forward, his voice dropping to a whisper. Look, if you want to get out of here, you need to stop with this. The doctors are watching. They're taking notes. If you keep talking about receipts and other women, they'll think you're worse than they thought. Do you understand me? I stared at him. This wasn't the man I'd married. The man I'd married had been kind, funny, the kind of guy who'd bring me coffee in bed on Sundays. This guy was cold, calculating. Like he didn't even know me. You're threatening me, I said. He stood up, adjusting his tie. I'm trying to help you. I'll come back tomorrow, and when I do, I want you to tell me you've talked to the doctor, that you're sorry for overreacting. Otherwise, he didn't finish the sentence, but he didn't have to. I knew what he meant. He'd keep me here forever if he had to. After he left, I went back to the common room and sat down next to Martha. She looked at me and sighed. He threatened you, didn't he? I nodded. and she patted my hand. "Don't worry, we'll get through this. But first, you need to play nice. Tomorrow, when he comes, tell him what he wants to hear. Then, we'll figure out a way to get a message to someone on the outside." That afternoon, I had my first session with Dr. Wilson, the head psychiatrist. He was a tall man with grey hair and a kind face, wearing a tweed jacket and glasses. He asked me about my childhood, my job, my relationship with Mark. I lied through my teeth, told him I'd been stressed at work, that I'd overreacted to a misunderstanding with Mark, that I was sorry for causing trouble. He listened quietly, taking notes on a pad of paper. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and said, "Lily, I've read Mark's statement. He says you've been having trouble sleeping, that you've been accusing him of things he didn't do, but I also noticed something in his statement. He said you threatened self-harm, but he couldn't give me any specific details. No dates, no times, no examples. That's unusual." My heart skipped a beat. Did he know? Could he tell Mark was lying? I don't remember threatening anyone, I said, playing it safe. I was upset, but I would never hurt myself. He nodded. "I believe you, but Mark is your husband, and he's concerned about you. If you want to get out of here, you need to work with us, take the medication, attend the group sessions, and try to resolve whatever issues you have with Mark. If you do that, we can talk about discharging you in a few weeks." A few weeks, that was better than forever, but it still felt like an eternity. As I walked back to the common room, I thought about what Dr. Wilson had said. He'd noticed the holes in Mark's story. Maybe he wasn't as blind as the others. Maybe he could help me. That night, Martha snuck into my bed and whispered, "I know a way to get a phone. The supply closet by the nurses' station has an old landline that's still hooked up. The nurses use it for emergencies, but if we can sneak in there after midnight, we can use it, but it's risky if we get caught. They'll put us in isolation." I hesitated. Isolation sounded terrifying, but so did being stuck here while Mark carried on with his mistress. "I'll do it," I said. She grinned. "Good. Meet me by the supply closet at 1 a.m. Wear dark clothes." I lay awake for hours, waiting for the clock to hit 1 a.m. My heart was pounding so hard I was scared the nurse on duty would hear it. When the time finally came, I slipped out of bed and met Martha by the supply closet. She pulled a bobby pin out of her hair and picked the lock, something she said she'd learned in a previous life, whatever that meant. Inside, the closet smelled like cleaning supplies and dust. Martha found the phone in the corner, covered by a pile of towels. She picked it up and handed it to me. "Hurry. The night nurse does rounds every 15 minutes. I dialed Emma's number with shaking hands. It rang 3 times before she picked up, her voice groggy. "Hello, Emma, it's me," I whispered. "Lily, I'm in Pinebrook Mental Health Facility. Mark sent me here. I need your help." There was a pause, then Emma's voice sharpened. "What?" I knew that son of a bitch was up to something. "He told me you'd had a breakdown, that you needed space. I tried to come see you, but he said the doctors wouldn't let anyone visit except him." "What do you need?" "I need you to find proof that he's cheating," I said. "I found a receipt for $450 at a boutique downtown. Maybe you can go there. Ask who bought it, and check his office. He's been staying late, says he's working, but I think." The sound of footsteps in the hallway made me freeze. "I have to go," I whispered. "I'll try to call again tomorrow. Don't tell anyone where I am, especially Mark." I hung up and followed Martha out of the closet. Slipping back into bed just as the night nurse walked past the door, I lay there, wide awake, smiling for the first time since I'd been admitted. Emma was on my side, and together, we were going to take Mark down. The next morning, I woke up feeling lighter than I had in days. Emma was working on it. She'd find the proof, and then I could get out of here and confront Mark. But when I walked into the cafeteria, Martha was sitting at our table with a frown on her face. "We have a problem," she said, pushing a bowl of oatmeal toward me. "Susan was in the supply closet this morning. She noticed the phone was out of place. She's asking questions." My stomach dropped. "Did she suspect us?" Martha shrugged. "Not yet. She thinks one of the orderlies used it to make a personal call. But she's keeping an eye on things now. No more late-night phone calls, not for a while, anyway." I nodded, picking at my oatmeal. That meant I couldn't talk to Emma again until we found another way. I'd just have to trust her to do her job. Did Mark come yet? I asked. Martha glanced at the door. Not yet, but he will, and when he does, you need to be on your best behavior. Remember what Dr. Wilson said. Play nice. And you'll get out of here faster. An hour later, Susan came to get me. Your husband's here, she said, her eyes narrowing like she was trying to read my mind. And Dr. Wilson wants to talk to you after your visit. Don't make me regret letting you see him. Mark was sitting in the same spot as yesterday, but this time he had a bouquet of roses, my favorite, pink ones, in front of him. He stood up when he saw me, and this time I didn't step back. I forced a smile. Thanks for the flowers, I said, sitting down. They're beautiful. He relaxed, a smile spreading across his face. I'm glad you like them. How was your session with Dr. Wilson yesterday? He called me this morning, said you were making progress. My heart raced. Dr. Wilson had called Mark. What had he said? Yeah, it was good, I said, keeping my voice calm. I told him I was stressed at work, that I overreacted. He said if I keep doing well, I might be able to go home soon. Mark's smile grew wider. That's great, Lily. I knew you'd get better. I've been so worried about you. The house feels empty without you. I stared at him, trying to see if there was any truth in his words, but his eyes were too bright, his smile too forced. He was acting, just like he always did when he wanted something. I missed you too. I lied. I can't wait to come home. We talked for an hour, about work, about his parents, about the weather. He didn't mention the receipt, and I didn't bring it up. When the visit was over, he hugged me tightly, and I could smell her perfume on his shirt, something floral, sweet. Not the cologne he usually wore. My blood boiled, but I didn't say anything. I just hugged him back and whispered, I'll see you tomorrow. After he left, I went to Dr. Wilson's office. He was sitting at his desk, reading a file. Have a seat, Lily, he said, gesturing to a chair in front of him. I sat down, my hands folded in my lap. Mark said you called him this morning, I said, trying to sound casual. He nodded, closing the file. I did. I wanted to update him on your progress. He seems very concerned about you. There was something in his voice, like he was testing me. I leaned forward. Dr. Wilson, I need to tell you something. Mark is lying. I didn't have a breakdown. I found a receipt for an expensive gift in his coat pocket, and when I asked him about it, he got angry. Then he called the hospital and said I was suicidal. He's trying to shut me up because he's cheating on me. He sat there, quiet, for a minute, then he leaned forward, his voice low. Lily, I've been doing this job for 30 years. I can spot a liar when I see one. Mark's story has more holes than a Swiss cheese. The suicidal threats, no evidence, the incoherent rambling. His description changed 3 times when I asked him about it. And then there's the fact that he called the hospital before he even talked to a doctor. That's not the behavior of a concerned husband. That's the behavior of someone who's trying to cover something up. My mouth fell open. You knew, he smiled. I suspected, but I needed to hear it from you. Now, here's the thing. If I take your side right now, Mark will hire a lawyer, claim I'm biased, and keep you here longer. We need to play this smart. Keep doing what you're doing. Play along. Tell him you're getting better, make him think he's winning. In the meantime, I'll do some digging. I have a friend who works at the boutique downtown, the one you mentioned. I'll ask her to check if Mark bought anything there recently. And I'll look into his medical records, see if he's been lying about other things. Tears filled my eyes. I'd been so alone, so scared, and now Dr. Wilson was on my side. Thank you, I whispered. He patted my hand. Don't thank me yet. We still have a long way to go, and if Mark finds out we're working together, he'll get desperate. Be careful. Don't let him see that you don't trust him. When I left his office, I felt like I could breathe again, for the first time since I'd been admitted. I had hope. Dr. Wilson was helping me, Emma was helping me, and Martha was on my side. Mark didn't stand a chance. That afternoon, during group therapy, I sat quietly while the other patients talked about their problems. A woman named Karen talked about her ex-husband who'd left her for a younger woman, and I found myself nodding along. He thought he could get away with it, she said, but I found out, and when I did, I took everything he had. You just have to be patient. Wait for the right moment. After group therapy, Martha pulled me aside. I heard you talking to Dr. Wilson, she said. What did he say? I told her everything. About how he suspected Mark was lying, about how he was going to dig for evidence. She grinned. I knew I liked that guy. He's not like the other doctors here. He actually cares. That night, I lay in bed, thinking about Karen's words. She was right. Patience was key. Mark thought he had me trapped, but he didn't. I was gathering allies, gathering evidence, and when the time was right, I'd strike. The next morning, Mark came to visit again. This time, he brought me a teddy bear, the same one he'd given me on our first date. I found this in the attic, he said, handing it to me. Thought it might make you feel better. I hugged it tightly, forcing back tears, not because I was sad, but because I was angry. He was using our memories to manipulate me, to make me forget what he'd done. I love you, he said. Taking my hand, I looked into his eyes and lied. I love you too, he smiled, and I could see the relief on his face. He thought he'd won. He thought I was back under his control, but he was wrong, so wrong. After he left, Dr. Wilson pulled me into his office. He had a piece of paper in his hand. My friend at the boutique called, he said, handing it to me. It was a receipt, $4.50 for a diamond necklace. The name on the receipt was Mark. The date was the same day I found the receipt in his coat pocket. She said he bought it for a woman named Sarah. Dr. Wilson said, Sarah Carter. She works at his office as his assistant. Sarah, I knew the name. Mark had mentioned her a few times. My new assistant, she's really helpful. I'd never thought anything of it. But now, it all made sense. The late nights at the office. The perfume on his shirt, the receipt, it was all for her. What do we do now? I asked. Dr. Wilson smiled. Now, we wait. I'll keep gathering evidence, emails, text messages, anything that proves his cheating, and when you're discharged, I'll give you everything. Then, you can decide what to do with it. Divorce him. Take him for everything he's worth. It's up to you. I nodded. I was ready to get out of here, ready to face Mark, ready to take back my life. The days blurred together after that. Wake up, breakfast, group therapy, one-on-one with Dr. Wilson, dinner, bed. Mark visited every morning, bringing me little gifts, chocolates, a new book, a scarf, and telling me how much he missed me. I smiled, nodded, told him I missed him too, but inside, I was counting down the days until I could leave, until I could confront him with the evidence. Dr. Wilson updated me every few days. He'd found credit card statements showing Mark had taken Sarah to a fancy restaurant downtown. He'd talked to the doorman at a hotel who'd seen them check in together. He even had a copy of an email Mark had sent to Sarah, telling her he loved her and couldn't wait to get rid of Lily so they could be together. It made me sick to my stomach, but it also made me more determined than ever. Martha was released a week later. She hugged me tightly before she left. Don't let him get away with it, she said, and if you need anything, legal advice, a place to stay, call me. I'll give you my number before I go. She wrote it down on a piece of paper and slipped it into my hand. Good luck, Lily, you've got this. After she left, the ward felt quieter. I sat alone at the cafeteria table, picking at my food, until Karen sat down next to me. Heard your friend got out, she said. Good for her. How are you holding up? I told her about Mark, about the evidence Dr. Wilson was gathering. She nodded. Good, keep that evidence safe, and when you get out, don't confront him alone. Take someone with you, your sister, a friend. Men like him get violent when they're cornered. Her words stuck with me. Mark had never been violent before, but he'd never been cornered either. I'd have to be careful. I'd ask Emma to come with me when I confronted him. A few days later, Dr. Wilson called me into his office. He looked serious. Lily, we have a problem. Mark came to see me this morning. He said he's worried about your progress, said you still seem distant. He wants me to increase your medication. He also mentioned that he's talked to a lawyer about getting power of attorney over your finances in case you're not able to make decisions for yourself. My blood ran cold. Power of attorney. He was trying to take my money too. What did you say? I asked. Dr. Wilson leaned back in his chair. I told him I'd think about it, but I'm not going to increase your medication. It's unnecessary, And it would make you more compliant, exactly what he wants. As for the power of attorney, I told him he'd need a court order, and that the court would want to see proof that you're unable to make decisions for yourself, which he doesn't have, but he's getting desperate, Lily. He knows you're going to be discharged soon, and is trying to cover his tracks. When am I getting discharged? I asked. He smiled. In 3 days, I've got all the paperwork ready. I'll tell Mark that you've responded well to treatment and that you're stable enough to go home. He'll be happy. He'll think he's won. But before you leave, I'll give you a USB drive with all the evidence I've gathered, emails, credit card statements, hotel receipts, the works. 3 days. I could barely contain my excitement. I was going home. I was going to take back my life. That afternoon, Mark came to visit. He looked nervous, more so than usual. Dr. Wilson told me you might be able to come home soon, he said. That's great, Lily. I've been cleaning the house, buying your favorite groceries. It'll be just like old times. I forced a smile. That sounds nice. I can't wait. He reached across the table and took my hand. Lily, I need to ask you something. I've been thinking. With everything that's happened, maybe it's a good idea for me to get power of attorney over your finances, just for a while, until you're feeling better. That way I can pay the bills, make sure everything is taken care of. There it was, just like Dr. Wilson said. I pretended to think about it. I don't know, Mark, that seems like a big step. Maybe we should talk about it when I get home, after I've had some time to adjust. He nodded, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. Of course, whatever you want. I just want to help. The next 2 days passed slowly. I packed my things, my clothes, the book Mark had given me, the teddy bear. I talked to Emma on the phone. Dr. Wilson had let me use his office phone, since the supply closet was still being watched, and told her everything. She was furious. I'll be at the hospital when you're discharged, she said. We'll go home together, and when we confront Mark, I'll be right there with you. On the morning of my discharge, I woke up early. I put on the clothes I'd been wearing when I was admitted, a pair of jeans and a sweater, and waited for Susan to come get me. When she did, she looked surprised. You're actually excited to leave, she said. I smiled. More than you know. Dr. Wilson met me in his office. He closed the door and handed me a small USB drive. Everything is on here, he said. Keep it safe. Don't let Mark see it. And if he tries anything, if he gets violent, if he tries to take the USB, call the police. I've already talked to a detective friend of mine. He knows what's going on. He'll help you. I put the USB drive in my pocket, clutching it tightly. Thank you, Dr. Wilson, for everything. I don't know what I would have done without you. He hugged me. Just take care of yourself, Lily. And remember, you're not crazy. He's the one with the problem. Mark was waiting for me in the lobby. He stood up when he saw me, a big smile on his face. There's my girl, he said, opening his arms. I hugged him, but I didn't let him hold me too tight. I could still smell Sarah's perfume on his shirt. Let's go home, he said, as we walked to his car. I saw Emma standing by the door. She winked at me, and I nodded. She was here. I wasn't alone. The drive home was quiet. Mark talked about the house, about how he'd fixed the leaky faucet in the bathroom, about the groceries he'd bought. I nodded, but I wasn't listening. I was thinking about the USB drive in my pocket, about the evidence it contained, about the confrontation that was coming. I was ready. When we got home, Mark opened the door and gestured for me to go inside. The house looked the same as I'd left it, clean, neat, full of the photos of us on the walls, but it didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a prison, a place where Mark had trapped me with his lies. Do you want something to drink? He asked. I have your favorite, lemonade. I shook my head. I need to talk to you, Mark. He froze. What about? I pulled the USB drive out of my pocket and held it up. This, Dr. Wilson gave it to me. It has everything on it. Emails to Sarah, credit card statements from the restaurant you took her to, hotel receipts, everything. His face turned white. He took a step back. Lily, save it, I said. I know everything. I know you bought her a diamond necklace. I know you took her to the Ritz-Carlton. I know you told her you loved her and couldn't wait to get rid of me. I know you sent me to that mental hospital to shut me up. He tried to grab the USB drive, but I stepped back. Emma walked in through the door, her arms crossed. "Don't touch her," she said. Mark turned to her, his face red with anger. "This is none of your business, Emma. It is my business when you send my sister to a mental hospital for no reason," she said. "And it's my business when you try to steal her money with that power of attorney bullshit." Mark stared at me, his eyes wide. "You told her about the power of attorney." I nodded. "I told her everything, and I've talked to a lawyer. She said I have a solid case. Divorce, alimony, half of everything we own. And if I want to press charges for false imprisonment, I can do that too." He sank down onto the couch, his head in his hands. "I'm sorry, Lily. I didn't mean to hurt you. I fell in love with Sarah. I didn't know how to tell you. I thought if I could get you out of the way for a while, I could figure things out." "You thought sending me to a mental hospital was figuring things out?" I asked, my voice sharp. "You thought lying to everyone, making them think I was crazy, was the easy way out. You're not sorry, Mark. You're sorry you got caught." He looked up at me, tears in his eyes. "No, I am sorry. Please, Lily, give me another chance. I'll break up with Sarah. I'll do anything." I shook my head. "It's too late. I'm done. I want a divorce, and I want you out of this house by the end of the week. If you don't leave, I'll call the police and show them the evidence. They'll arrest you for false imprisonment, and I'll make sure everyone knows what you did. Your parents, your boss, your friends. No one will ever look at you the same way again." He stared at me, then stood up. "You're making a mistake," he said. "You'll regret this." I smiled. "No, Mark. I'll regret marrying you, but I'll never regret getting rid of you." He walked out of the house, slamming the door behind him. Emma hugged me tightly. "You did it," she said. "You're free." I leaned into her, crying happy tears. I was free, free from Mark, free from the lies, free from the mental hospital. I looked at the USB drive in my hand. It was small, but it had given me my life back. That night, I slept in my own bed for the first time in weeks. I didn't have any nightmares. I didn't wake up scared. I just slept, peaceful and content, because I knew that no matter what happened next, I was strong, I was brave, and I was never going to let anyone shut me up again. Mark didn't come back that night, and I didn't care. Emma stayed over, crashing on the couch with a blanket I dug out of the hall closet. We ordered pizza, pepperoni, my favorite, the one Mark always said smelled like a college dorm, and talked until midnight. She told me she'd gone to that downtown boutique, showed the clerk a picture of Mark she pulled from my phone, and the girl behind the counter didn't even hesitate. "Oh, him. Buys something nice for Sarah every couple weeks," she'd said, like it was the most normal thing in the world. Emma got her to print a copy of the necklace receipt too, just in case Dr. Wilson's didn't hold up. "We've got him," she kept saying, and for the first time, I actually believed it. But the next morning, reality hit like a bucket of cold water. I woke up to the sound of a car door slamming, and when I looked out the kitchen window, there was Mark, leaning against his silver BMW, arms crossed, staring up at the house like he owned it, which, technically, he did. We'd bought it together 3 years ago. But his name was first on the deed. I froze, my coffee mug clattering against the counter. Emma stumbled in, rubbing her eyes, and followed my gaze. "Shit," she muttered. "Want me to tell him to get lost?" "No," I said, setting the mug down. "I need to do this. But stay close." "Okay," she nodded, grabbing a baseball bat from the coat closet. "Just in case," she said, and positioning herself behind the living room door as I opened the front one. Mark stepped inside without being invited, his cologne mixing with the leftover pizza smell in a way that made my stomach turn. He looked different. His hair was messy, his tie askew, dark circles under his eyes. Like he hadn't slept. "We need to talk," he said, bypassing the couch and standing right in front of me, close enough that I could see the flecks of green in his eyes, the ones I used to think were so pretty. "I think we said everything yesterday," I said, crossing my arms. My hands were shaking, but I tried to sound steady. "You need to pack your things and go," he laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "Pack my things. Lily, this is my house, and you're still sick. Dr. Wilson told me you might have setbacks after discharge. That's what this is, right? A setback. You're confused, making up stories about Sarah." "I'm not confused. I snapped. I have the USB, Mark, emails, receipts, hotel records, I know everything. His face darkened, he took a step forward, and I flinched. Instinct, from all those days in the hospital where I'd felt trapped. That's when Emma stepped out from behind the door, the bat resting on her shoulder. Back off, she said. Her voice low, Mark's eyes flicked to her, then back to me. This is between me and my wife, Emma, your wife who you illegally committed to a mental hospital. She shot back, your wife who you cheated on with your assistant. Yeah, I'd say that makes it my business. Mark's jaw tightened, he turned back to me, his voice dropping to a whisper. Lily, please, let's just start over. I broke up with Sarah, I called her last night, told her it was over, it was a mistake, okay, a stupid mistake. But I love you, I've always loved you. For a second, I almost believed him, not because he sounded sincere, but because I wanted to go back to the way things were. Sunday mornings with coffee in bed, road trips to his parents' cabin, laughing at his bad jokes. But then I remembered the stretcher, the smell of bleach, Martha's dry laugh when she said, "This place is full of women like you." I remembered the email Dr. Wilson had shown me. The one where Mark wrote, "I can't wait to get rid of Lily. You don't love me," I said. "You love the idea of me. Someone who cooks your dinner, irons your shirts, doesn't ask questions. When I started asking questions, you locked me up. That's not love, Mark, that's control." He stared at me, his chest heaving. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a piece of paper, slamming it on the coffee table. "Fine," he said, "if you want to be this way, but you're not getting half of anything. This is a letter from my lawyer. He says that since you were involuntarily committed, your testimony about the evidence is unreliable. The court won't admit it, and since my name is on the deed, you'll be the one leaving this house. By the end of the week." My blood ran cold. I picked up the letter, my hands shaking as I read it. It was dated yesterday. He'd already talked to a lawyer before he even came over, planned this. "That's not legal," I said, though I wasn't sure. I'd never been through a divorce before, never had to fight for something I thought was mine. "It is legal," he said, leaning in. "And if you try to take this to court, I'll tell everyone about your breakdown, your boss, your friends, your family. Who do you think they'll believe? The stable, successful husband? Or the woman who spent 3 weeks in a psych ward?" Emma stepped forward, the bat raised slightly. "You wouldn't dare try me," Mark said, his eyes never leaving mine. "I'll ruin your life, Lily. You'll lose your job, your apartment, everything, unless you drop this. Sign the divorce papers I'll send over. No alimony, no split assets, and I'll keep quiet about your issues. We can both walk away." He turned and walked out, slamming the door so hard the pictures on the wall rattled. I stood there, staring at the letter on the coffee table, until Emma put her arm around me. "Don't listen to him," she said. "He's bluffing. We'll get a better lawyer, one who knows about false commitment. He can't get away with this." But I wasn't so sure. Mark had always been good at manipulating people, charming his way out of trouble, making everyone think he was the good guy. What if he was right? What if no one believed me? I thought about my job at the bookstore, the one I loved, where the regulars knew my name and asked about my nice husband. What if Mark told them I was crazy? I thought about my parents, who'd never liked Mark but had finally come around when he took such good care of me during my illness. Would they side with him? That afternoon, I called Martha. Her voice was warm when she picked up, like we'd known each other for years instead of a few weeks. I told her everything. Mark's threat, the lawyer's letter, my fear that no one would believe me. She listened quietly, then sighed. "Honey, I've been there. My ex-husband tried the same thing. Said I was unstable, threatened to tell my boss. But here's the thing. Judges hate this shit. False commitment, that's a big deal. You just need the right lawyer. I know a woman. Karen, she helped me win my divorce. She's tough. She doesn't take any crap from guys like Mark. I'll give you her number." I wrote down the number, my hands steadier than before. Martha was living proof that guys like Mark could be beaten. She'd gotten her house, her savings, and her dignity back. If she could do it, so could I. I called Karen that evening. She was sharp, no nonsense, asking questions about the hospital stay, the evidence, Mark's threats. When I finished, she said, "Don't worry. We've got a solid case. The USB alone is gold, emails from his work account, credit card statements with his name on them, and the false commitment, that's actionable. We can sue him for that, not just divorce him. He'll be the one begging for a settlement." Relief washed over me, so strong I had to sit down. "Really, really," she said, "meet me at my office tomorrow at 10 a.m. Bring the USB, the receipts Emma got, anything else you have. And don't let Mark intimidate you. He's bluffing because he's scared. Scared you'll expose him for the piece of shit he is." That night, I slept better than I had in weeks, not because everything was fixed, but because I had a plan. Mark thought he could scare me into silence, but he was wrong. I had Emma, Martha, Karen, Dr. Wilson, an army of people who believed me, and I had the evidence, the little USB drive that I kept tucked under my pillow, safe and sound. The next morning, I woke up to find Mark's car parked outside again, but this time, I didn't flinch. I put on my favorite jeans and a red sweater. Mark hated red, said it was too loud, and walked out to his car. He rolled down the window, a hopeful look on his face. "You changed your mind." I leaned down, my face inches from his. "No," I said, my voice clear and steady. "I'm meeting my lawyer today. She says we have a great case. False imprisonment, emotional distress, adultery, oh. And she mentioned something about suing the hospital for not properly investigating your claims. Dr. Wilson's already agreed to testify. By the way, he says your story had more holes than a screen door." Mark's face paled. He reached for me. But I stepped back. "Lily, wait. We can talk about this. I'll give you half the house, half the savings. Whatever you want, just don't sue me. It's too late for that." I said, "You should have thought about that before you had me dragged into Pinebrook, before you lied to everyone, made them think I was crazy, before you told Sarah you couldn't wait to get rid of me." I turned and walked back into the house, closing the door behind me. I could hear him yelling my name, but I didn't look back. For the first time in months, I felt in control. Mark could threaten me all he wanted, but he couldn't take away the evidence, he couldn't take away my allies, and he couldn't take away my courage. The fight was just beginning, but I knew I was going to win. Karen's office was in a brick building downtown, above a bakery that smelled like fresh croissants. I stood outside for a minute, clutching the manila envelope with the USB, receipts, and Dr. Wilson's notes, trying to steady my hands. Emma was parked nearby in her beat-up Honda, giving me a thumbs up through the window. "You've got this," she mouthed. I nodded, took a deep breath, and pushed open the door. The receptionist, a woman with bright pink hair and a nose ring, smiled when I told her my name. "Karen's been waiting for you. Go on back. Door on the left." The office was small but sharp, metal filing cabinets, a desk cluttered with papers, and a wall covered in framed diplomas. Karen was sitting behind the desk, typing on a laptop, wearing a black blazer and jeans. She looked up and grinned. "There she is. Grab a seat. Want coffee? It's terrible, but it's hot." I sat down, sliding the envelope across the desk. "No thanks, I'm too nervous to drink anything." She laughed, a loud, hearty sound that put me at ease. "Nervous is good. Means you care. Let's see what we've got." She opened the envelope and pulled out the USB first, plugging it into her laptop. Her eyes scanned the screen, her expression hardening as she scrolled through the emails. "Jesus," she muttered when she got to the one where Mark wrote, "Can't wait to get rid of Lily. This is gold, not just adultery, malice. That'll help with the emotional distress claim." She pulled out the receipts next, comparing them to the credit card statements on the screen. Boutique, restaurant, hotel, all tracked to his cards. No way he can deny this. And Dr. Wilson's notes. She flipped through them, nodding. His testimony alone will sink Mark's "she was unstable" story. He's a respected psychiatrist with 30 years of experience. Judges eat that up. I leaned forward, hope swelling in my chest. "So what's next?" "First, I'll file for divorce, at fault, based on adultery and malicious false imprisonment. Then, we'll file a civil suit for emotional distress and wrongful commitment. I'll send Mark's lawyer a demand letter, half the house, half the savings, full alimony for a year, and he pays all legal fees. If he doesn't agree, we go to court. And trust me, he doesn't want to go to court. This evidence would ruin him professionally. His boss would fire him if they saw these emails, not to mention his parents. You said they're religious, right? I nodded. Then they'll be horrified. Mark's a control freak. He can't stand the idea of people seeing him as anything other than perfect. Just as she finished speaking, her phone rang. She picked it up, listened for a minute, and frowned. Tell him I'm with a client. No. I don't care if he's desperate. Call him back later. She hung up and rolled her eyes. That's Mark's lawyer. Probably already heard we're meeting. They're panicking. My heart raced. He knows I'm here. Karen shrugged. Either he followed you, or he's been checking your phone. Do you have a password on it? I nodded. Good, but get a new one. Something he won't guess. Don't use your birthday or our anniversary or whatever, and don't take any calls from him. Let me handle it. We spent the next hour going over the details, dates of the hospital stay, names of witnesses, Martha, Dr. Wilson, Emma, and what to say if Mark tried to contact me. He'll probably beg, threaten, maybe even cry, Karen said. Don't fall for it. He's not sorry. He's scared. Stick to your guns. When I left the office, Emma was waiting for me, holding a paper bag from the bakery downstairs. Croissant, she asked. I took it, biting into it. Flaky, buttery, perfect. How'd it go? I told her everything. And she squealed, hugging me so tight I could barely breathe. I knew it. I knew Karen would come through. Let's go celebrate. My treat, ice cream. We were halfway to the ice cream shop when my phone rang. It was Mark. I hesitated, then sent it to voicemail. Good, Emma said. Karen said don't answer, but 5 minutes later, it rang again. This time, it was his mom, Margaret. I sighed. I have to take this. She'll worry if I don't. Lily, Margaret's voice was tight. Worried. Mark told me what's going on. He said you're having trouble, that you're accusing him of things he didn't do. Is that true? Are you okay? My throat tightened. There it was, Mark's spin, making me sound crazy to his own mother. I'm fine, Margaret, I said, my voice steady. But Mark isn't telling you the whole story. He had me committed to a mental hospital because I found out he was cheating on me with his assistant, Sarah. I have proof, emails, receipts, hotel records. I'm getting a divorce. There was silence on the other end. Margaret had never liked me much. She thought I was too plain for her perfect son. But she was also a woman who hated liars. Is that true? She asked, her voice softer. He really had you committed. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. Yes, ask Dr. Wilson at Pinebrook. He'll tell you. Mark lied about me being suicidal. There's no evidence of it. None. I need to think, she said. I'll call you back. She hung up. And I stared at my phone. That could go either way, Emma said. But at least you told her the truth. Now it's up to her. We got ice cream, vanilla for me, chocolate for Emma, and sat on a bench in the park. A group of kids laughed as they chased each other, and a dog ran by, carrying a stick in its mouth. For a minute, I forgot about Mark, about the divorce, about the hospital. I just felt normal, like the last few weeks had been a bad dream. But when we got back to the house, the dream came crashing back. Mark's car was in the driveway, and he was standing on the porch, talking to a police officer. My stomach dropped. What the hell is he doing? Emma muttered. We walked up, and Mark turned around, a fake smile on his face. Lily, thank God you're here. I was worried. You didn't answer my calls. I told Officer Reynolds here that I haven't been able to get into my own house, that you're keeping me out. The officer looked at me, his expression neutral. Is that true? Are you refusing your husband entry to his residence? I stepped forward, my voice clear. First, this is our residence. We own it together. Second, I didn't keep him out. He left yesterday after I told him I wanted a divorce, and he hasn't tried to come back until now. Third, he illegally committed me to a mental hospital 2 weeks ago to cover up his affair with his assistant. I have evidence, emails, receipts, a statement from Dr. Wilson. Do you want to see it? The officer raised an eyebrow, looking at Mark. Is that true, sir? Mark's face turned red. No, that's a lie. She's been unstable. Dr. Wilson can tell you that. She's making this up because she's mad I asked for a divorce. I pulled out the USB, called Dr. Wilson at Pinebrook Mental Health Facility. Ask him about Mark's claims, ask him about the evidence he gathered of Mark's affair, he'll tell you the truth." The officer hesitated, then pulled out his radio. He talked for a minute, then hung up. "Dr. Wilson is on his way here. He said he has information relevant to this situation." Mark's mouth fell open. "You can't do that. That's a violation of patient confidentiality." Karen's words popped into my head. "Dr. Wilson's testimony will sink him." I smiled. "Dr. Wilson said he's willing to testify in court. I think he'll make an exception for a police officer." We waited on the porch for 20 minutes. Mark pacing back and forth, muttering to himself. Emma stood next to me, her arm around my shoulder. "He's going down," she whispered. I nodded. I could feel it. When Dr. Wilson pulled up, he got out of his car carrying a folder. He shook hands with the officer, then turned to Mark, his expression cold. "Mark, I've already spoken to the police on the phone. Your claims about Lily being unstable are false. You lied to the hospital about her making suicidal threats. There's no evidence to support that. In fact, I have evidence that you committed her to cover up your affair with Sarah Carter, your assistant." He handed the folder to the officer. "Emails, credit card statements, witness statements from the hotel doorman, all proof of the affair and your malicious intent." The officer opened the folder, flipping through the pages. His eyebrows went up as he read. He looked at Mark, his expression hard. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. If you come back here without Ms. Carter's permission, I'll charge you with trespassing, and I'll be forwarding this evidence to the district attorney's office. They'll decide if charges for false imprisonment are warranted." Mark stared at him, then at Dr. Wilson, then at me. "You," he said, his voice shaking, "all of you, you're conspiring against me." Dr. Wilson stepped forward. "No, Mark, you did this to yourself. You tried to ruin an innocent woman's life to cover up your own mistakes. Now you're going to face the consequences." Mark turned and stormed to his car, slamming the door so hard the windows shook. He peeled out of the driveway, tires screeching. The officer handed the folder back to Dr. Wilson. "I'll be in touch if we need anything else, and Ms. Carter, if he contacts you again, call 911 immediately." I nodded. "Thank you, officer." After he left, Dr. Wilson hugged me. "I'm proud of you." He said, "You didn't back down. That's not easy." I smiled. "I couldn't have done it without you, or Martha, or Karen." He nodded. "That's what allies are for. Now, go inside, spend some time with your sister. You've earned it." Emma and I went inside, ordering Chinese food and putting on a silly movie. But I couldn't stop smiling. Mark had tried to intimidate me, to make me look crazy, to get the police on his side. But he'd failed, because I had evidence, because I had allies. Because I wasn't going to let him win. That night, my phone rang again. It was Margaret. I talked to Dr. Wilson, she said, her voice quiet. "He told me everything. I'm so sorry, Lily. I didn't know. Mark lied to me, to all of us." I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. "Thank you for calling," she sighed. "I'm not just calling to apologize. I'm calling to tell you that my husband and I are cutting Mark off. No more money, no more support. We won't stand for this. And if you need anything, testimony, references, whatever, we're here for you." Tears filled my eyes. I'd never expected Margaret to take my side, but she had. "Thank you," I whispered. "That means more than you know." After we hung up, Emma hugged me. "See, I told you we'd win, one by one. Everyone's seeing him for who he really is." I nodded. Mark had lost his lawyer's bluff, his police trick, his parents' support. He was alone, and I was just getting started. The next morning, Karen called to tell me Mark's lawyer had agreed to our terms. Half the house, half the savings, full alimony for a year, no court needed. "He's desperate to keep this quiet," Karen said. "His boss found out about the affair. Someone leaked the emails. He's on probation at work. If this goes to court, he'll get fired." He folded like a house of cards. I sat down on the couch, staring at the wall. It was over. I'd won. But instead of feeling happy, I felt tired, like I'd run a marathon. Emma handed me a cup of tea. "You did it," she said. "You're free." I smiled, taking a sip. She was right. I was free, free from Mark, free from the lies, free from the fear. That afternoon, Mark came to pick up his things. He didn't look at me, just grabbed his boxes and carried them to his car. Before he left, he turned around. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice quiet. For a second, I thought he meant it, but then he added, "I'm sorry I got caught." I nodded. "I know. Goodbye, Mark." He got in his car and drove away, and I didn't watch him go. I just closed the door, turned around, and smiled. For the first time in a long time, I was home. The first week after Mark left was strange. I'd walk into the kitchen expecting to see his coffee mug on the counter, or hear his keys jingle at the door when I got home from work, but the mug was gone, and the only jingle was the wind chime Emma had hung by the front door. It took 3 days to take down all the photos of us, our wedding, the cabin trip, our anniversary dinner at that little Italian place downtown. I stacked them in a box in the attic, not ready to throw them away but not ready to look at them either. Work helped. The bookstore smelled like old paper and vanilla candles, just like I remembered. My boss, Mr. Henderson, pulled me aside on my first day back, handed me a mug of chamomile tea, and said, "Emma told me a little about what happened. Take all the time you need, no rush. The regulars, Mrs. Greaves who loved romance novels, Mr. Torres who collected vintage science fiction, all hugged me and said they'd missed me. No one asked about the breakdown Mark had warned me about. No one looked at me like I was crazy. For the first time in months, I felt like myself again." Emma stayed over most nights that first week. Even though her apartment was only 10 minutes away, we'd order takeout, watch bad reality TV, and talk until we fell asleep. One night, she pulled out a bottle of wine and said, "You know, I always hated Mark's taste in music. Remember when he made us listen to that jazz CD for 3 hours on the way to the cabin?" I laughed, loud, genuine laughter that made my cheeks hurt. It was the first time I'd laughed about something from our old life without feeling sad. A week later, Martha called and asked if I wanted to get lunch. We met at a little cafe downtown, the kind with mismatched chairs and homemade soup. She looked great. Her gray hair was cut into a sleek bob, and she was wearing a bright yellow sweater that made her eyes pop. "I got a new job," she said, stirring her coffee, receptionist at a vet's office. "The dog's a better company than my ex-husband ever was." I told her about work, about taking down the photos, about how quiet the house was. She nodded. "It gets easier. The quiet. I mean, at first, I'd turn on the TV just to fill the space, but now, I kind of like it. No one telling me what to do, no one lying to my face." We started meeting for lunch every other week. Sometimes Emma joined us, sometimes it was just me and Martha. She'd tell me stories about her ex-husband's latest disaster. He'd gotten fired from his job, she heard, after he lied about a client. And I'd tell her about the new book I was reading, or the kid at the bookstore who'd asked for a scary story but not too scary. It felt good to have someone who understood. Someone who'd been through the same thing and come out the other side. A month after Mark moved out, Dr. Wilson called and asked if I wanted to get coffee. I hesitated at first. Pinebrook still felt like a bad dream. But he said, "Not at the hospital, at that little bakery by my office. They have the best cinnamon rolls in town." I agreed, and when I got there, he was sitting at a table by the window, a cinnamon roll already waiting for me. "How are you really doing?" he asked. No clipboard, no notes, just genuine concern in his eyes. I told him the truth, that some days were hard, that I'd see a silver BMW on the street and my heart would race, that I'd wake up in the middle of the night thinking I was back in that hospital room, but that most days were good, that I loved my job, that I laughed with Emma and Martha, that the quiet house didn't feel empty anymore. He nodded. "Healing isn't linear," he said. "It's okay to have bad days. What matters is that the good days outnumber the bad ones." He told me about Pinebrook. They'd changed their admission process after my case, requiring 2 doctors to sign off on involuntary commitments instead of just one. "You did that," he said. "You made that place better, not just for you, but for every woman who might end up there because some guy is too cowardly to face his own mistakes." I felt a surge of pride, something I hadn't felt in a long time. I hadn't just survived, I'd made a difference. That night, I went home and rearranged the living room. I moved the couch to face the window, hung up the painting my mom had given me for my birthday, The one Mark had hated because it clashed with the rug and lit a candle that smelled like lavender, as I sat on the couch. Looking at the moon through the window, I thought about Mark, not with anger, not with sadness, but with indifference. He was just a guy who'd made a lot of bad choices, a guy who'd lost everything because he couldn't be honest, a guy who no longer had any power over me. A few weeks later, I got a text from Margaret. She said Mark had moved to another state, taken a job at a small firm. She didn't ask me to forgive him, just said she hoped I was doing well. I wrote back, I am. I hope you are too. It was the first time I'd mentioned her son without feeling anything at all. That weekend, Emma and Martha came over for a barbecue. We grilled burgers, drank lemonade, and sat on the porch watching the sunset. Emma brought her new boyfriend, Jake, who told terrible jokes and helped me fix the broken bird feeder Mark had never gotten around to repairing. Martha brought her dog, a rescue beagle named Lucy, who spent the afternoon chasing squirrels and begging for burgers. As I watched them, Emma laughing at Jake's joke, Martha wiping ketchup off Lucy's chin, I thought about how far I'd come. 3 months ago, I was locked in a hospital room, scared and alone, convinced Mark had ruined my life. But now, I had friends who loved me, a job I adored, a house that felt like home again. I had courage I didn't know I had, and strength I'd found in the most unexpected places. That night, after everyone left, I went into the attic and pulled out the box of photos. I opened it, sifting through the pictures one by one. There was Mark and me on our wedding day, me in a white dress, him in a tux, both of us smiling like we had the rest of the world figured out. There was us at the cabin, covered in snow, holding mugs of hot cocoa. I didn't cry, I just looked at them. Then put them back in the box and carried it to the garage. I'd donate them to Goodwill tomorrow, I thought, not because I was bitter, but because I didn't need them anymore. My future wasn't in those photos, it was in the quiet of the house, in the laughter of my friends, in the pages of the books I'd sell tomorrow at the bookstore. I climbed into bed, turned off the light, and listened to the wind chime outside. It was quiet, but it wasn't empty, it was peaceful, it was mine. And as I closed my eyes, I smiled, because I knew that no matter what happened next, I'd be okay. I was strong, I was brave, and I was free. Alright, that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe. We'll keep updating with more exciting stories, and we look forward to seeing you next time.